What's up, people? I am back. Sorry I haven't done a video in a few days. Christmas was just crazy. And 28 weeks later, I'm gonna have to just put off till next week because I figured I wanted to get this Nosferatu review out. I wanted to do it earlier, but things came up. Um, so I decided I'm just gonna do this today. Tomorrow I'm gonna be doing my top 20 Christmas movies, and I finished my list earlier. My top 21 best movies of 2024. There's been some really good ones, and I'm happy to say my best list is more than the worst. I'm happy to at least have gotten that. So that'll be done. I'll do the Christmas one tomorrow. If not, I might just, if I don't end up doing the Christmas one, I might just be like, fuck it, I'll save that one for next year. And then just do the best films tomorrow. We'll see how things go. So that, and then I'll figure out what I'll do next week. But today, I am reviewing a movie I've actually been really wanting to talk about. This is probably the one this is probably my most anticipated movie for a while because I'll be honest, yeah, like I love the original Nosferatu, and having not seen it in a while, I might actually go back and review it maybe sometime next week since this one just came out, and I think it's not long at all, and I think it's on YouTube, so I might just watch it sometime next week. If I don't review it, I'll at least talk about it in a video. If I don't do a whole video, but I might. We'll see how short it is. But I remember when they first announced this, I didn't know what to think, and then I saw Robert Eggers was directing, and he is quickly becoming one of my favorite directors. I didn't love The Lighthouse. I think that's the only one I didn't really love. But Grant, I might need to watch that again, because I'll be honest, I watched like a part of it, but I don't feel like I watched the entire thing, and plus I was watching it with people and we were all talking, so, and I think I came in when it wasn't like all the way at the start, so I feel like I didn't give it truly a fair shake. But The Northman was great. I've heard The Witch was really good. So at least Robert Eggers does try to do his own stuff. But yeah, The Northman, really good. So I was like, okay. And then more and more trailers and just images. And then I love Bill Skarsgård as an actor. And him as Orlok his voice is truly I meant to say bone chilling. Like, his voice is so fucking good every time he speaks. And I remember even just a little snippet they showed, and I think I saw some people like, oh, they show too much, I don't want to see his voice. But I'm like, that little snippet doesn't give you a taste at all, because man, when you watch it in the movie, him speak in the entire movie, his dialogue is so eerie. The movie is literally atmospheric. It's the epitome of Victorian horror. It was a nice throwback, because we haven't gotten like a nice Victorian-esque movie. You know, I love some of that. I love the acting. The shot of the carriage when it's Thomas, which is Nicholas Holt's character, before they go into Orlok's castle, you see this carriage stop, and it picks him up, and you get this nice shot. It's like dim of the forest, the snow. And I will say, this movie very much is a Christmas movie. I was against it coming out on Christmas, because I'll be honest, I was more thinking, I was worried it's gonna bomb, and I don't think it will now. Seems like when I went, granted, I saw it on Christmas, and I saw it at like 10:30 in the morning, and there were a decent amount of people there. There was way more people than I actually thought there was gonna be. I was like, oh, okay, there's more people than I thought. I thought it was gonna be. I didn't think necessarily it wasn't gonna be anybody, but I saw it at 10:30 in the morning on Christmas. I was thinking, okay, people, if they're going to go see it, they'll see it at night. But no, they all saw it. So I can only imagine a night showing. So, and this movie does justify being Christmas. Because this movie is I'm going to say it's cold. Like, you feel the cold even when you watch it. I love movies like that are set in the snow, but you feel the cold. Like, I think The Thing is one of those. 30 Days a Night's another one I can think of that's like that, but I think this one is perfect. This tone, Nicholas Holtz, I think, really showed he can play a good Lex Luthor. And I know it's weird because Thomas is a good guy, but you felt his fear Because obviously, he didn't truly believe when he first met Orlok, but that scene, there's a scene when he's at Orlok's castle when he kind of realized the shit is real and that fear sets in. And he really made you feel it. Just with his performance. Because he was apprehensive, but he wasn't necessarily scared. But then that scene when he kind of realizes there's something, and then obviously the scene when he goes to Orlok's coffin and he sees Orlok rise and he tries to stab him. The fear in his eyes, and when he's getting chased, or when he first gets back to town and he sees Ellen, you see the fear. I think the only, I guess, not necessarily bad performance, I think Lily Rose Depp, who's Johnny Depp's daughter, I think she's a good actress. I think some of the scenes with Ellen, when the scenes where she's getting convulsing and getting possessed by Orlok, I will be honest, some of her performances did throw me off, but I think she's fine, and like the scenes, like when she's just talking, is very good. And the dialogue is very well done. I'm gonna say it too. The sound design. I didn't even have headphones. Granted, I saw it in the theater, so it was nice. So I kind of can't wait to watch. I know it's weird to say you can't wait to watch a movie on your phone, but sometimes the only reason is because I like hearing it with headphones, and I want to hear that sound design. Because the sound design in this movie, even the scenes when you just see Orlok draining blood, or the horse carriages walking on the ground and you're hearing the hooves on the ground. The sound is just so good. They put so much work into it. And you could tell. The only thing like about the film I don't love, and I get it, it's thematic, and they did set it up that basically Ellen has to give herself up, and she does, and basically gives enough time for Orlok to not get back to his tomb in time by sunrise, and he ends up dying. I'll admit, I did want a bit more, but I'm okay with how it happened, because ultimately it was thematic, and it does fit the movie, and they do set it up. I just think maybe if the third act was a bit longer, I think that could have worked a bit better for me, but everything else, man, outside of a few complaints, I fucking love this film. The dialogue was very much at the time, and I like it. I like that they try to talk like they're from the time. Robert Eggers really puts work in clear. Like, even in The Northman, I noticed that. Where he put work into the dialogue to make you feel like you're there. Because there's just some directors, when they do a period piece, but they still put in, like, modern lingo, or they'll have the actors still talk in a way where I'm like, they wouldn't talk like that, even in the cadence. They wouldn't talk like that back then. So I like that Robert Eggers actually puts work into making you feel like people would actually talk like that back then. And I think he does, man, because I love the Willem Dafoe as Professor Albin von Franz. Who, let's be real, he's basically Van Helsing, essentially, but not by name. But he knows of the occult. He knows what Nosferatu is. I love his character. Willem Dafoe is another. Like, there's a lot of great character actors here. I mean, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Friedrich. I think Aaron Taylor Johnson is wild, because this is the guy you wouldn't think. This is Kick-Ass, right? You wouldn't think the dude from Kick-Ass would get this far as an actor, but he did. I mean, this movie, I loved him in Bullet Train. That kind of showed me he is a great actor. Because unfortunately, obviously, he was in that shitty Godzilla movie. I felt like Kick-Ass, obviously Kick-Ass was fun, but that kind of character, you kind of can only play one note. Even, it's wild, because, yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson was in Craven, but I'll even say he at least tried in that movie. So to see him in this, and he's actually really good as Friedrich. I love his introduction, and you feel bad for him, because his family gets murdered. His wife, Anna, and his kids. There's a scene where basically Orlok, his motive is he wants Ellen for himself, and he basically gives her 3 nights to give herself up to him, because she has to willingly give herself up to him. She cannot like be forced or coerced or anything like that. Even Orlok explains it, and that's why he warns her, "I will kill anyone you love." Which I guess in a way that's kind of forcing, but it's still in a way where you gotta agree. She can't be like forced literally. So one night, Friedrich's really passed out. His wife hears noises, and she investigates, and that's when walks in and you see Orlok killing her kids. It's pretty violent, man. Like, it's not a long scene. Like, you just kind of see him bite his daughter, her daughter, and then he's holding the other one. I'm assuming he already bit. And then, yeah, you feel for Friedrich there. And then the scene where he basically commits suicide because he wants to be with his wife. It's sad. Like, he ends up believing, because obviously initially he's the skeptic. He doesn't believe it's vampires. He thinks it's just some normal medical issue with Ellen. And, you know, it sucks, you know, because you want to think he's a dick for kicking out Ellen, but you kind of get it. He wants to protect his family in the long run because he doesn't know what's happening. And you don't want to believe that there's this vampire because, you know, obviously it's still not known. I do love that they do bring in the Black Plague, because he basically, Orlok brings with them these rats that carry the plague with them when he travels to the movies in Germany of Wisberg. It's not a real town, but it's and when he gets there, and there's the one scene the guy opens the box and you just see it's full of rats, and then that's when Orlok, like, so there is a body count, but that's not what this film's about. So I will say it's not really scary, it's more unsettling. Like, there's jump scares and everything, but it's not like 30 Days a Night. If I had to say in terms of scarier, I'm gonna be real, I think that's probably a scarier movie because there's more jump scares, it has more of a body count. This film is more about the performances and the atmosphere and the mood, even the setting. Like, Robert Eggers isn't going for like a jump scare kind of film. Like, there's a couple, I'm not gonna say there's none, but there's definitely some, but that's not the point of the movie, is basically what I'm going for. The movie's only 2 hours and 12 minutes. I thought it was actually going to be longer, and I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't mind. I'm going to be real. If there was like another hour and a half in the film, so the film almost was like a 3-hour film, I would have been fine. Because I'm not going to lie, I wanted more. I think Robert Eggers made it compelling enough. It made me want more. Like, I wouldn't mind it like another hour. I love the town. I love how it felt lived in. And I'm going to say it, and I know I don't want to point this out, and, you know, it's weird to point this out, but I'm going to say it. I like that it was an all-white cast. Robert Eggers didn't try to go for this weird, we're going to throw in a black guy or some diversity just to have it. Because when I watch movies like this that are supposed to be like Victorian Europe or feudal Japan, or that are certain areas, especially in certain times, I don't want just random black people thrown in there. Just be like, oh, Trey, there's some representation for him. I don't need that. I like Robert Eggers, and I'm not saying he's deliberately going out and getting an all-white cast. It's just he understands this movie is Victorian Germany. It's gonna mostly be a white cast in the 1800s. It's not gonna be just random diversity like that. Like, I like this movie, but Last Voyage of the Meteor, I like the movie. But the random black guy threw me off. I'm going to be honest. It did. Like, it was like, why is he here? You could have just easily made that character white and it'd play out the same. And I don't want to be that guy, but I'm sorry. Like, for me, with movies like this, medieval Europe, certain times, if it's going to be, it makes sense. Just have it be an all-white cast. It's fine. I can watch, like, movies set in ancient China, feudal Japan, and understand it's going to mostly be Asians. Obviously, if I'm watching a movie that's set in, like, Africa at a certain time, yeah, it's probably going to mostly be black people, especially certain parts. There's nothing wrong with that. Not every movie needs to have random representation if it doesn't mean it, if it doesn't fit. And that's what I like when Robert Eggers does. He tries to keep it accurate, you know? And I know it's weird to point that out, but with current Hollywood, you almost have to point that out. You know? There wasn't some weird, like, forced, I'm just gonna say, gay shit in there, and I have no problem with gay people. They just didn't throw that shit in there. It was about making a movie. That's all this was. Um, One thing I also really like about Robert Eggers, going back to the dialogue, is how it feels very lived in. It People talk like how they would talk at this time. They didn't try to put in, because there's some movies that are set even in like medieval Europe or in certain period pieces, but they somehow still use either modern lingo or they use modern cadence when they talk. And I'm like, people would not talk, especially at this time, like that. I like that Robert tries to make it accurate. But yeah, the atmosphere, the mood, um, the world feels lived in. I love how Orlok's not in every scene. I'm gonna be real with you. Probably screen time, he doesn't have a lot, but you feel his. That's another sign for me. A really great horror movie is if the killer and/or creature isn't in the film the whole time, but you feel its presence throughout, even if it's not in it. Like you feel Orlok's presence throughout. You know, he controls the person who hires uh Thomas to do the job ends up getting hypnotized by um Hernock, I think is his name. He's Thomas's employer. You see him first, and he's all normal, and then you see him go deteriorate and go crazier and crazier because he even sacrifices him to basically get staked by Orlok. I mean, sacrifices himself for Orlok because the scene later where um, Vaughn ends up staking him, that's not Orlok. That's his. He's basically like a disciple and he becomes possessed, and that's what. And he ends up trying to do that with Ellen because throughout the film, that's what he wants. Um, though Friedrich wants to think it's because she's just, misses her husband. And basically Knox starts doing, like, he ends up escaping from prison so he can bring in Orlok. But granted, obviously, Orlok's going to treat him like shit because Orlok really just wants Ellen. And that's the thing about this film, too. For, like, a lot that happens, it's a very simple film. I also think, too, there's not a slow point. There's not a point where I'm like, okay, I'm bored checking my phone. Like, no, they keep the pace very well. Like, you're into it, even at the start. You just see Ellen as a young girl. She wants to be loved. And then I'm assuming this is, like, a dream scene. Or, like, this is her as a kid. And then you see her getting attacked by a vision, which is Orlok trying to hypnotize her. So, another thing, this movie does have like a Bram Stoker's Dracula kind of plot because you have Thomas who has to go get a deed signed by Orlok, but Orlok does not want to come to town, so he has to come to him. Though we get the reveal that Knock only gave him the job because he was already, by this point, he's basically sending him to Orlok to die. So, but overall, man, this is my film of the year. That's why I didn't make my best yet. I wanted to wait till this one, and it's funny because Bill Skarsgård is my best film of the year. Top two best of the year, because he's also in Boy Kills the World, which is my number one for a while. It's my number two now. But also my best in this one, but he's also my worst with The Crow. And it really shows to me, The Crow wasn't his fault. That was just a script. It should have never have existed. I've already got into it. I don't want to go more into it. I've talked about it in my original rant video, and then also my worst list. So, he's not why this was bad, why that was bad. Because twice now he has shown he's a great actor, and when he actually has something to work with, he sinks his teeth into. He's a great character actor. Orlok, even in John Wick 4, Um, it's even though I have my problems with the newer It movies, I still think he is a good Pennywise. And then in Boy Kills World, I think he's shown multiple times he's a great character actor, and I think this is probably my favorite role of his. I loved him as Orlok, the way he played him, even when you first meet him. You don't see his face fully, you just see his fucking hands, or you hear his voice, which is just, I'm gonna say it again, it's bone chilling. It does kind of send chills in your spine when you hear him talk. And that to me is a sign too, because another great example of that is Doug Bradley as a Pinhead. When you hear him speak, especially in those first two films, you do kind of feel a chill in your spine, like, ooh, his voice is cold. And going back to the cold, this movie is cold, and you feel it, man. You feel how cold it is in that winter and that Christmas feel. So I will say it is a Christmas movie, not a traditional one, but you do feel that cold winter feeling with this movie. Now, it made me understand. I understand now, like, why they released it on Christmas. I would have still preferred if they came out in October. I think this would have been perfect in October, but having seen the film now, I understand why they wanted to release it on Christmas. And maybe it might work out for them, because at least, and I know it's anecdotal, but when I went to see it, there was a lot of people, especially for a 10:30 showing in the morning. Yeah, so I definitely want to go see this again, and maybe at night. I do. I would love to see this at night. I think that would hit different. But overall, out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. Favorite film of the year, bar none. I definitely recommend, and I'll give it a 2024. It ended on a very strong note, just like 2023 did last year with -1. I don't know if I would say this is on par with -1. I think -1 was probably a better movie. But in the sense of having a really great film that shows that it's an iconic film compared to the others, yeah, I think this is the -1 of this year in that sense. So I definitely recommend it, especially if you've never seen the original Nosferatu. That I definitely recommend. I'm gonna say it. I think this is the case where I do think the original's better. This where the remake is better than the original. I love the original, but I just gotta say it. Obviously, the original is kind of a silent film and it's older, so in that sense, it's not hard to be better. But I'm happy it did. And yeah, Robert Eggers, he can just keep making movies. Apparently, he's doing like a night movie, which I cannot wait for. Having seen Northman and now this, he's one of my favorite directors now. And I definitely cannot wait to see another movie with him. So, yeah. And if they want to give him another horror movie, fuck it, man. Give it to him. So, but overall, yeah, one of my favorite films of the year. The plan is tomorrow I'm gonna do my top 20 Christmas movies, even though we're after Christmas. You know what? You know what? I changed my mind. I'm gonna just wait till next year's Christmas. I missed the boat to do that. Even though it's still technically December, I feel like we are after Christmas now. It would be almost pointless. I wanted to get that list done. I have it made, but unfortunately, because Christmas got busy, and then also I saw this movie. I didn't end up getting to it. It'd be one thing if I made the list like yesterday, because at least it'd be the day after, but now it would be literally 3 days later. There'd be no point. So we're just gonna, tomorrow and or Sunday, I'm gonna do my favorite films of 2024. It's 21, so I'm actually happy. It was a nice big list this year. I was worried it was just gonna be like only up to like 10 or something. I was actually able to get past that. So I'll be doing that tomorrow. I'll try to do it tomorrow, because then maybe Sunday I can still get 28 weeks later done, so we can still try to do that this week. So the plan is, if I do that tomorrow, that'll be the video for tomorrow, and then 28 weeks later on Sunday. But if I don't end up getting to it tomorrow, the list for sure will be tomorrow, and then we'll just save 28 weeks later for next week. Other than that, guys, let's get into Nosferatu. Oh, one more thing. The score is really good, too. It is a great score. I mean, I'm going to say the same thing about Northman. Northman had a pretty good score. So Eggers, if he has a say in the music, I hope so, because whoever he gets to score his movies is really good, because the score in this is really good. And there are times, too, what I love is there are moments it does kind of just turn into a black and white movie at times. Even the way it's shot at times, where it can like switch from color to black and white for like a second, it works. Yeah, man. So let's get into it. It sucks 'cause I actually wanted to do the Christmas list, but it just, yeah, it got in the way. So, I love the opening of this film. Like, it already kind of gets you into. You just see Ellen praying, and you see her as a little girl, and then this I'm fucking up words. Demonic force comes, and that's Orlok, and it causes a seizure, and then kind of she wakes up because basically it was the equivalent of a dream. She is now married, lives in not Winsburg, with her husband Thomas, who Nicholas Holtz, man, I'm really happy how far he's come as an actor. You know, I loved him in the X-Men movies. That's where I first saw him, was the X-Men Origins, X-Men Days of Future Past, I think is where I first saw him. And ever since then, dude has come far as an actor. And I really want to hope his Lex is good. You know, obviously I have my problems with him in the trailer, but having seen him in this movie, I think at least acting-wise he's shown, I think he could be a Lex. Obviously, not necessarily the same character, but I think he shows he's a great actor that I think he could do it now. I'm not like, oh, I think I'm worried he's going to play it badly. So, no, I think if his Lex turns out bad, I'm more going to, I am more going to blame the writing. Because when he's directed well, he is a great actor. So, I really think him in this movie is so good. Because he just starts off as like a normal guy. He wants to gain more money for his wife and his family. So he unfortunately has to travel. He accepts a commission, his employer Hernock, to go to get a deed signed by Orlok, who doesn't want to come into town, so he has to go to him to his castle. This is where you do get a little bit of that, very much kind of Bram Stoker's Dracula, because you kind of had the same thing there, where they had to go to his house. So I really love that. But they do change it up, and we find out that Nock obviously is doing this because he signed a pact with Orlok, basically giving him victims because he's under his spell, and we see it later that when he's trying to commune with him, and you know he's all naked. Like I said, there's scenes that are unsettling, man. Like that's why I would say don't go into this thing and it's gonna be scary and more and expect a lot of jump scares. It's more for the atmosphere, and it's unsettling. I saw Evan T talk about it earlier. I think they use the word unsettling, and that's perfect word for this movie. Very unsettling. It's more about like it creeps you out more than it's like outright scary, you know. And Ellen doesn't want him to go because she thinks he's gonna die, and she has like a bad feeling, but he kind of has to. And this is where she tells him about his dream about death, and that if he goes and he kind of says everything's gonna be all right, he then leaves her with his friend Friedrich, and we have a nice scene with them. You know, we find out Friedrich, you know, is this apparently he's based off a character from Bram Stoker's Dracula, Arthur. And yeah, he stays with his friend Friedrich while he lets her stay there while he goes to Castle Orlok. And when they go to Castle Orlok, before he gets there, he goes to a village, to it says Romani village, but I'll just say it's Gypsy. Fuck it, I'll just use the word Gypsy village, and he sees them desecrating a vampire corpse, and you see blood rise up and they're also telling him don't go to the castle because they know about vampires basically. And I'll say it, there's a lot of titty in this movie. This movie's very sexual, and it makes sense because even Bram Stoker's Dracula is very sexual. Vampires have always had a sexual element. I think there's times it goes too far. I'm going to say Interview with the Vampire is an example where I think it goes too far for me, where I'm like, I get vampires sexual, but I think it goes too far. That's one I think goes too far. I think this is the perfect amount. Yeah. So yeah, you do get a lot of titty. Fuck, I'm going to say it. You see fucking Orlok's. You see an outline of Orlok's dick. You do. So, and I will put spoiler in the title because I have a friend and a couple other friends who want to see this movie, and I definitely want people to see this movie. So I don't want them to just watch this video. I mean, granted, I think a lot of you know by now I do spoil, but I still want to put spoiler, especially for this one, because I do want people to go out and see this. I genuinely want people to go see it. This is a really good film. This needs to make money. I'm not saying it needs to make a lot of money. I'm not expecting a lot, but if it can make like, if it somehow can make like 300 million, even 400 million, if it can make around there, that's pretty big. Because this is one of those movies, I think, like, when I first heard it, I think I'd only make like 200 million. Wouldn't make a lot of money. Just because if it could somehow get to like close to 500 million even, I don't think it will get there, but if it somehow gets there, I mean, granted, we have seen a case where if it's really strong word of mouth, and I think a lot of people love this movie, so maybe, I would love a situation where it makes money. Because I think this is Robert Eggers. I want him to get more stuff, and I think a big sign is if you want that is this movie makes money, because his movies need to make money. Because if he gets more money, he can do more stuff, and he's not, especially because I wish he's kind of doing what I want Fede Alvarez to do, where Fede Alvarez I think is a good director because he did great with The Evil Dead, but I want him to do his own thing. I really was disappointed. He felt like he needed to do Alien. I get Evil Dead wasn't original too, but I get when we're more up and coming, I understand that. But I think someone like a Fede Alvarez is a good enough director. I think he could easily do more stuff on his own, but he wants to keep doing just like IPs. So that's what I like about. I mean, yeah, this is not an IP, but he's shown he can do his own stuff. The Witch isn't an IP. This is an IP. Not this. And even I wouldn't even really call Nosferatu an IP. It's only had the original. There hasn't, and that was in the 1900s. I think it was 1922. So it hasn't been touched since. So it makes this is at least an original. It's original in the sense of it's not based off anything outside of the Bram Stoker's Dracula element, but largely you get the Northman, the Witch, the Lighthouse are all original. He shows he can do his own stuff. He's also shows if you give him something that is based off something, he's very accurate with. So, and the scene when he gets to Warlock's house, and this is probably my favorite shot of the movie, and probably my favorite scene just because of how well it's shot and the mood it sets. When you see Castle Orlok in the distance, and you see that carriage rock up, and he's in the middle of the road, and it's almost like a crossroads almost. You see like trees covered in snow. You got the snow. You got Thomas having this apprehensive face. It really, that whole scene is so shot well, man. That is, like, I'm like, my God, that is. I'm like, that, when I think cinema in the sense, that's what I mean. Like, that is what I mean. Like, that's cinema to me. I know that people say that a lot now, but this very much is that for what I mean. This is what filmmaking is. That is what I love. So when he gets to Orlok's castle, and he starts signing the deed, and I'm not gonna lie, this scene is so good. When you first see Orlok, you just hearing him talk. You haven't seen him yet. There's even a part when they were walking up to his quarters in the castle, and you're just seeing him walk up, and he's just talking. You haven't seen him yet, and it's already chilling. Like, my God, his voice, and Orlok wants to finalize the purchase, and like he's insistent. He doesn't want to make you wait, and like the scenes when he's like, "Do not make me wait," and all. I'm like, ooh. It's like, yeah, you do not want to make this guy wait, man. He is fucking Bill Skarsgård. When he gets into a character, he gets into a character, and I really think this is an example of that. It's just going back. And I know I said this earlier, but going back to the fact that he's great in this and in Boy Kills World really shows me he wasn't the problem. And I think I have always known that, but there's nothing wrong with having a visual aid to help. That, yeah, he wasn't the problem with The Crow. He was not why that movie was trash. He was written like shit. Like, I'm not going to defend that part. He was written like shit. Obviously, what they did with Eric, making him a druggie and all that shit. But he wasn't the problem in that movie. Because when he can get into something and you have material for him to work with, he can fucking show it. 'Cause I think in this movie, he very much shows it. This is my favorite Bill Skarsgård role. I mean, I need to watch it one more time, and I got to see if it is recency bias, but I don't think it is. His performance in this is really fucking good. I loved him in John Wick, and I'm gonna be real. I know a lot of people like him as Pennywise. I like his Pennywise, but I don't love those movies. So I think that holds it back a bit. Whereas I just think the movie is great, and then his performance is so fucking good. He really was into it. I love when you can tell he worked on it. I mean, that's what I mean. I think Bill Skarsgård has always been a great character actor, where you give him like something to sink his teeth into it in terms of performance. He will fucking deliver, because he delivers here as Orlok. Like, he's even menacing when you first see him, and he doesn't show his teeth. You've seen his claws. You know, at least we know as an audience, especially if you've seen the original, you know he's a vampire. But if you've never seen this movie, or even the original, you first see him, you don't necessarily know he's a vampire. You just think, okay, this dude's just creepy. The reveal happens because he cuts his thumb on a knife, and basically Orlok is able to kind of mesmerize you, and he mesmerizes him. It kind of makes you think he's helping him. He's actually biting him and starts draining him, and basically keeps him prisoner. And this is where Orlok wants to go home, but he says, no, you got to stay another night. You're weakened, which Orlok did on purpose, so he can't go home the next day. And the reason he wants to keep him there, because he knows that he's married to Ellen, and he wants Ellen for himself. So basically, if he keeps Thomas here, he can take him out, and he can go see Ellen. So while this is happening, he does, throughout the film, start kind of having a spell on Ellen, and she starts going through seizures, and Friedrich tries to find out what the problem is. He thinks she's having it because she just misses Thomas. She even goes to his friend Dr. Sievers, and he doesn't know, so Sievers has to go to Albin von Franz, who, in a way, you could tell he's inspired by Van Helsing, because the way he knows about vampires and all that. They just don't outright, like, he knows Orlok. That's the only thing they don't add, but you can clearly tell they're going for that angle. And I do like that. I think Willem Dafoe he's another great character actor, so I love when he gets added in movies like this, because he really puts on a great performance. I loved him in his movie. You know, even the scenes when he gets kooky and he's allowed to go a bit more, like, kind of show that crazy side. I fucking love it. And yeah, Aaron Taylor Johnson's great, man, because he kind of just starts off normal, and he clearly just kind of doesn't want anything, and you understand why. It's like, yeah, you do think he could be, maybe he's a bit of a dick, because he just kind of puts off what's happening to her, but it's like, obviously at that time, you are going to get people who are going to be skeptical of the occult. That's why he, when Von Franz tries to give him his theory, it just doesn't work, because he doesn't believe it, because in his mind, it's just, oh no, she's just anxious about her husband not being here. So going back to Thomas, because it kind of goes back and forth, Thomas manages to break into one of the rooms, because there's a door and that's locked, and he manages to get in, and he finds a coffin, and this is when he sees Orlok, and he's about to stab it. Orlok wakes up, and this is where you kind of see an outline of his dick. I am not kidding you. You do. So, like I said, it's a very sexual movie, but it's not, like, annoying. Like, it makes sense. Like, vampires are sexual. That is the thing. But there are times they can go a bit too far, and I don't think this is one of those movies that does. So, he chases Thomas with his dogs, but Thomas manages to get out of a window and jump into a river. Um, then, yeah, so he basically Von Franz realizes that she's under a spell of Nosferatu after doing an experiment. Well, he said demonic possession. Obviously, Friedrich doesn't believe it. He thinks she just misses her husband, and that's why this is happening. But and Sievers kind of slowly starts to believe, because this is at this point they do catch Hernock, and they do take him to an asylum. He even attacks Sievers, because we find out that Hernock obviously is under the spell also of Nosferatu. Because he causes a rampage, he even attacks Sievers. That's when he's institutionalized, but that night he breaks out. When Orlok approaches, he basically melds himself to Wisberg, slowly kind of killing the crew. And I'm not going to lie, when I watched this scene, even though it was a quick scene, I do think this is better than Last Voyage of the Demeter. I like that movie. I have some big problems with it, but even though this bit part, I think this did it better. It killed the entire crew. That's what should have happened in the movie. Some of it is Orlok. Some of it was the rats in there are filled with the plague, because it's around the time of the bubonic plague. So I love the setting of that. Like, they explain why things are happening. Because, yeah, the bubonic plague actually ends up getting into town, and people start everywhere getting infected. I know I'm jumping ahead, but that's a bit later, but it ties in. And yeah, he basically kills all the crew. The last scene when the guy opens the box, because he starts wondering, why is everybody dying? Something's happening, because they're all getting infected with the plague. He opens the box full of rats, and that's when Orlok approaches behind him and drains his blood. So there is a bit of a body count. They just don't make it like a point to make that the entire film. One of the night, Orlok basically tells Ellen that he is hers, or she is basically, and that he wants her, and he gives her 3 nights to basically give herself up to him, to basically pledge herself to him, basically become his, or more people will die, especially in like her family. So she has 3 nights, and she has to willingly do it, because there's even a scene where Hernock says, "I'll try to kidnap her, master." And he's like, "You can't do that," because Hernock's the one who brings him in. I'm jumping ahead. He breaks out of the institution. He kills I'm not gonna lie, I love this transition. This is a scene right after Orlok kills the crewmaster by biting him. He kind of feels it, and that's when he breaks out. And yeah, he gets Orlok and basically brings him in, and that's when Orlok tells him, "Yeah, you can't kidnap her. She can't be forced. She has to willingly pledge herself to me." And I love when movies explain that kind of stuff, but they don't make it exposition dumps. It's just he explains it pretty quick, but you also understand it. He ends up. Then I'll just kind of jump ahead. He kills Friedrich's kids and his wife after the town's been affected with the plague after his arrival, because all the rats. Oh, she has to approve of the divorce and pledge herself to him. It has to be willingly, like her choice. She can't be forced. So he basically says, or she'll start killing people. So he kills Friedrich's family. This scene is pretty tragic. Friedrich's like uber tired, so he's like, because his wife Anna hears a noise, And I'm gonna say it. I think the only thing I would have switched, I liked Lily Rose Depp, but I do think if Anna, the chick who played her, was pre was Ellen, I think she would have probably pulled it off a bit better. That's just me. The scenes where she's convulsing and stuff, there's some moments where it does take me out. Like moments. It's not terrible, but it's moments. It does take me out. But she ends up waking up and he walks in on Orlok killing her kids. It is pretty sad. And it's pretty violent. He's holding the one kid, she's already dead, and then the other one he bites and drains. And then, yeah, he kills her. And then he wakes up to it, and then she basically, um, um, she then Orlok warns he will kill, Thomas if she doesn't. Friedrich kicks, I think at this, before this, yeah, he kicks Ellen and Thomas out. At this point, yeah, Thomas gets back into town and he tries to comfort Friedrich after his wife's death. At this point, Friedrich does believe, but he's too grief ridden, so he goes back to her grave and basically kisses her. Obviously, she's dead, so that's necrophilia. So, and yeah, so he ends up dying. And then Von Franz plans to kill Orlok, but basically it's a ruse because the real plan is because there's a scene where Ellen talks to Von Franz privately. She basically has to give herself up to Orlok, and her plan is to basically keep him there until morning, which obviously could kill him, theoretically. But he makes it seem like the plan is Von Franz, Thomas, and Sievers are gonna kill Orlok at his coffin and burn it there. So he ends up doing that. There's a scene where, the night before they have to do the mission, um, Thomas and Ellen get into a fight, obviously, but then they end up having sex. And I think this is probably because this is like the last time, basically. While this happens, Ellen gives himself up, while Von Franz proceeds to burn the crypt. But they open it and it realizes it's Hernock in the coffin, because Thomas at this point realizes what's really happening, and he tries to get back to Ellen, but Von Franz says it's too late. And when he gets back to her, it is too late because it is sunlight and he is draining. Orlok drains her. And basically, gives herself up to him until sunrise. And by the time sunrise happens, he disintegrates, and Thomas holds her hand as she dies, because obviously because she lost a lot of blood, and at that time, the medical was not the same as it is now, as you all know. So, but yeah, this is a great film. The only thing I don't like, I said, I do think this ending is a little anticlimactic, but I understand thematically why they did that. But I can understand why some are like, okay, this is a bit anticlimactic. For me, I still accept it because they do set it up, and in a way, it is. I'm gonna keep saying it is thematic. It makes sense why they went that route. I can understand. I even think a little bit, I think maybe if that third act was a bit longer, maybe if it had like another 30 minutes before we got to that scene, maybe I could have been like more accepting. I still overall love the movie, but I do think that ending is a little, not weak, but I wanted a little bit more. But I understand, and I do ultimately still think it works for the movie, why they went that route. It just, it is what it is. I still love this film. I think best film of the year. Best performances. I really think Robert Eggers knows what to do with these kind of movies. And the fact that he can take something like Nosferatu and make it good, a modern one, good, even though I'll be honest, when I first heard this movie, because when I hear remakes and reboots and all that now, I'm just like skeptical. So to hear like a good one happen and actually Robert Eggers take his own and make it his own and even in a way make it better, I'm gonna say it. I do think it's better than the original. I love the original Nosferatu. You know what? Fuck it. Maybe sometime next week I will review the original, since we just watched this one. So it might as well make sense to review it. So, but yeah, this is better. The performances, Nicholas Hoult as Thomas, I meant to say, is really good. You feel his fear, especially in that opening scene when he realizes what Orlok actually is. Aaron Taylor Johnson, you feel his grief in the end there, man. Obviously you think it's disgusting because it's a dead body, but it's also tragic. And then, obviously he ultimately dies, which sucks, and setting up that ending. And Bill Skarsgård really does deliver as Orlok. I don't really think I have much stuff to say. I really love this movie. Like, 2024 definitely ended on a big, strong note. And, even for some people, Sonic 3, that came out, and that was another one for a lot of people. I watched it, it was fine, but obviously I don't think it compares to this movie. For me, this was a nice way to end the year, and I'm happy to say I saw it in theaters, because this was definitely a fun theater experience. This was one, this and Terrifier 3 are probably like my two favorite theater experiences this year. Like, just in terms of like, both were fun, and the visuals in this is one of those you do kind of have to see on a big screen. It doesn't hit. I don't know if even on your like a nice TV, it wouldn't fully hit the same if you like saw it on the big screen. Especially that scene with the carriage. That visual like really hits better on the big screen. And some of those moments where it does have moments where it goes to like black and white is very well done. So yeah, I love this fucking film. So that's all I can really say. 9.5 out of 10, best film of 2024. And that's probably what I'm going to title the video, because I don't really think there's anything else to say. Best film of 2024. So tomorrow I'll be doing my best top 20 best films of 2024. Obviously you already know my number one is, but that's going to be fun. I'm happy that was more than, I just say I saw 21 pretty good movies this year, because it's been solid year. Yeah, there's been a lot of bad, obviously, but I do think there's been some good. So I'm at least happy to say I was able to make a good list this year. So, and then depending on how much I can make, maybe I'll try to do like the most anticipated films of 2024. But I don't know, because I have a feeling I'm only gonna come up with, if I can't come up with more than 5, I probably will not make the video. If it's only 5, then I might make the video still, but we'll see. But anyways, guys, I'm going to probably call it here. Go see this movie. It is fucking awesome. The atmosphere, it's very gothic. If you love films like that, it is very good. So, Pin Down Podcast, we will be back next Saturday. So, get ready for that. And yeah, gonna talk to y'all later. Tomorrow, top 21 best films of the year. Talk to y'all later. Peace.